Hello and welcome to the Hoodcast. We are back after a hiatus. You know, lockdown came in. You meant you've got time to do your projects, get more productive. That was a fucking lie, wasn't it, Jimmy?
I can't even tell you how many projects I've not been doing for the last few months. So
It's been amazing. Like, like more time on your hands. You think like, you put it to good use, and there's loads of stuff that I know, that I have no obstacles for, and then you just fill it with fucking nothing.
100%. I made a point to try and start a YouTube channel, which I've got no inspiration to do while I'm just sitting in my bedroom all day. So happy 2020, everyone. It's been great.
Woo! And because with the thematics of just an awful year, we were missing something like more awful, like a personal tragedy in the wrestling community. Like the year of speaking out, and now Brodie Lee's dead, which is horrific. Obviously, the two aren't related. I'm just talking about tragedies in that context, and 41 years old, non-COVID lung condition, just finally seemed to be getting the respect he deserved as a performer. He was very much like, a lot of my friends who were hardcore fans of like Dragon Gate and the Indies were like, oh, this guy's amazing. He's really underutilized by WWE as Luke Harper. And then I think, there's definitely something about him. AEW, he does bits. He has a really great match out with Jon Moxley. And then, has a last match of his career, probably his best. Beautiful performance. Sad, that what's happened. But if you're going to see a Brodie Lee match, that dog collar match versus Cody Rhodes, that's something. But I don't know. Rest in peace, Brodie Lee.
It's almost impressive, like how much he did for such a short time in AEW.
Yeah, completely saved the Dark Order.
100%.
Yeah, they needed that reveal because it was flatlining, wasn't it?
Yeah, this time last year, many people were saying like they were done. It was the worst part of Dynamite, and pretty much everyone was shitting on the Dark Order.
Yeah, that probably reached its nadir when there was a fight and you could see one of their members blatantly missing some punches, and that was memed to shit. And I think that kind of gaffe kind of encapsulated their sort of 2019 adolescence.
Yeah, I mean, they debuted and everybody hated it. The first few months, everybody hated it. Anytime they got any kind of heat, it was just sort of go away heat. It was it's incredible how he sort of turned that around. Yeah. He made like everyone's least favorite part of Dynamite or AEW into probably most people's favorite, and raised the profile of like sort of 5 or 6 people quite considerably at the same time as well.
Yeah. Like 5 and 10, who I'd never heard of, looked like decent prospects for the future. John Silver, especially, and Alex Reynolds, over. Anna Jay, very over. Evil Uno and Stu Grayson, I've always had time for, but they look a lot better now for having been associated with him. And, I always thought they could do bits in the ring, especially since Evil Uno has gotten, noticeably svelter, and his ring work has improved. And it just... it's kind of like daddy got home and fixed everything.
Yeah, it really is. Evil Uno is actually one of my complete favorites. I love his mannerisms, like this kind of like suave, oddly faux polite. Like, I don't even know how to describe him, but like a guy is like got this like weird charisma that draws me in. But yeah, the last week has just been awful. Brodie Lee's passing, and then every time you go on Twitter, just another person tweeting out some kind of lovely story about him. And I don't remember ever seeing. I don't ever seeing like a this sort of level of sort of like love and support for anyone in the wrestling community, which is just amazing to see, really.
Yeah, just like seems like an absolutely saint with an awesome sense of humor. The Chris Jericho story about how his dog Oakley never warms up to anyone, hates strangers, but immediately went up to Brodie Lee and licked his hand. I think that says when a dog does that, I think that says a lot about the quality, the caliber of human being. And I must say, absolutely, how AEW are looking after the family, from what I've heard, and the wrestling community as a whole, like CM Punk, for example, is donating a month's worth of merch profits to Brodie Lee's family. The service, kind of like tribute show, was really tastefully done. Like they said on Wrestling Observer, it kind of sets the standard for tribute shows. It was kind of like a funeral with wrestling in, but in a beautiful sort of way. It was very moving.
Yeah, as I said before we started, I cried during it. I wouldn't even consider, I wouldn't have considered myself like a massive Brodie Lee fan before this, but I think just it's been so emotional over the last week. The tributes they did, especially the segment with John Silver and Adam Page and Eric Rowan doing that run-in, and the aftermath of that, and Brodie's kid hitting MJF with the kendo stick, which I think everyone in the wrestling world kind of popped for at the same time. It was great.
No, that was amazing. Like MJF sort of had to be a real douchebag, didn't he? Like you couldn't see him behaving in any other way, could you?
He's everyone's favorite douchebag, isn't he? Let's be honest.
I think him and Kingston were the two that could get away with playing with that heat. And it's still not looking forced. Just looking like, yeah, that makes sense. And Brodie got to twat him with a cane, which was great. Brodie Lee Jr. And it just what needs to be said has been said by better informed people than you and I. But it's beautiful, and it's just a great loss. And I will be looking to familiarise myself with other great Brodie Lee matches. I enjoyed his reign as Intercontinental Champion Luke Harper. His stuff with the Wyatt family against the Shield was hell of a lot of fun. And if anyone has any suggestions, link them up to us in the comments, and because it will be noteworthy for us to get comments on this podcast. So I will read them.
I'm quite interested to see what they do next with the Dark Order. It's a very, very tricky spot, because how do you fill the spot that's been left? Someone who literally turned it around so forcibly almost.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily they'll even go with like a leader, because I don't think they'll feel like a replacement. They'll kind of have Evil Uno as most of a spokesman for their intentions, but it might be more kind of like a democratic-ish fraternity. Hangman, they've hinted at affiliating with them, and I think that would be interesting to play with. John Silver, I think, will become one of the more big players, Anna Jay as well. I think those are the ones that could get more airtime as like not necessarily the leader role, but like sort of like a representative or ambassador for the Dark Order, like basically what Evil Uno is doing already, but other people could fill that role as well.
Yeah. I'll have to see. It's going to be a weird few weeks, obviously, going forward. So,
yeah, how like the Bullet Club now, Jay White is ostensibly the leader, but you have kind of like Evil and Kenta as well, who are like focal points.
Yeah, I mean, they could go down that road. Although there is always that kind of thing with a Bullet Club of I feel like I'm on the verge of war all the time, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They'll pull the trigger with some more infighting there, but after the big, Elite versus OG Civil War, I don't think they'll muck about with that a lot, because it would just get to NWOE, where there's like so many factions, and there's like little own brand NWO and all of that sort of stuff. You don't want it to just descend into farce.
Yeah, no, fully agree. which I guess brings us on to New Japan quite nicely.
It does. It's a nice transition. It's why I, sort of, steered the conversation that way, because I'm a consummate professional, Jimmy.
And I pointed it out just to ruin that transitional moment.
It's fine. It's meta. Everyone loves Rick and Morty and Big Mouth. So, self-referential and meta and edgy. That's what we're going for.
So shall we run down Wrestle Kingdom? Have you really been following much New Japan over the last few months? I guess is my first question.
It's been hard. Like I the last one I watched properly was the Jay White versus Kota Ibushi match, when he won the right to challenge. He won the briefcase off of Kota, and then set up obviously the main event quite nicely. The thing is, the conversation, the fact that it's not really been English dubbed as quickly, and where I find it, New Japan, they take it off, they copyright take down that pretty quickly, and I can't afford New Japan World at the moment. I'm a bit skint, so I've refamiliarized myself with what's been going on. I've researched up to this, but I haven't watched anything since then, is my answer. I really could have just one sentence that, but what about you?
I'm much less flowing and professional than yourself. I'm very much the same, just purely due to the pandemic. They are unable to get sort of English commentary up as quickly as they had before. I think in sort of 2019, they almost had, I'd guess about 80% of events they were running had some form of English commentary. So it was quite easy to sort of pick up and go. And unfortunately, that has dropped. Wrestle Kingdom, thankfully, will have English commentary live, I believe.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to sort of being able to see that again. And I've tried to follow along as best as I can. But it's because of how things have been. I think like they've sort of put a lot of things almost on hold, which they tend to do at this time of year anyway.
Yeah.
Normally we'd be having a World Tag League, I think, sort of thing, a run up to Wrestle Kingdom, which is essentially a way of resting the big stars before the January 4th show.
Yeah, making sure no one gets injured, which is quite smart.
When the bulk of your roster is known for dropping on their necks as a hobby, probably for the best, yeah.
Yeah, man's an osteopath's nightmare, New Japan,
Or all their dream, because they must be making a fortune.
Yeah, I'm surprised,
Kota Ibushi alone.
Exactly, I'm surprised, pop-up chiropractors don't appear wherever they're touring, They just make a killing. And the thing is, a lot of their roster can't and has not been able to get into the country for long periods of time. So they've been working a sort of skeleton crew. So the dip in interest isn't really their fault. I mean, I really enjoyed the New Japan Cup. The G1 Climax was as good as it always is, and those are the two. Wrestle Kingdom, New Japan Cup, and G1 are mostly what I watch, and then I hear kind of oh, check out this match. This match has done bits, or this has happened. So I end up watching a lot of segments other than those big three. That's when those 3 times are when my interest peaked in New Japan, because I watch a lot of wrestling as it is. I'm just too busy and too tired. Yeah,
I'd got into the habit of sort of New Japan and AEW being my 2 main promotions for the last sort of year, but to be honest, my interest has waned a bit with New Japan, purely because 90% of the time I can't understand what's going on, unfortunately, and to be honest, it's quite depressing watching it, because they have almost full crowds again.
Yeah, it's like I feel a bit cucked by Japan and New Zealand at the moment. And but it's not even a cuck where you're allowed to be involved. You're sent off you're put in a cage downstairs while they go at it. You're not even allowed to experience. You're not allowed to even watch.
Yeah, that's sounding oddly familiar. If I'm honest.
Or maybe a freeway, but then the other 2 are clearly just using it as an excuse to bag, and you're sort of like excluded.
Yeah, like it's like it wouldn't make any difference if I just like slinked off for a bit at this point.
You just halfway through. You during the freeway. You're just like, I could get a KFC and neither of them would notice, and I'd probably have a better time.
I'm checking my phone.
I'm playing Marvel Strike Force. We're not sponsored, but eventually, I hope if I mention enough brands, someone will reach out eventually.
Or we could just do the opposite. We could slander as many brands as possible, and eventually one of them will sponsor us to stop slandering them.
Yeah.
So Marvel Strike, if you don't want us to include you in things about threesomes, you know where to go.
I can officially confirm that Marvel Strike Force are a front for ISIS. It's how they recruit officially now. You know, like in the American Office, where their social network feature for ordering paper turns out to be a safe haven for pedos. Same thing. I think we should get onto the card now that we've done the
live probably for the best. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I'm doing in order of least important to the main event. I'm starting for night one. The first match is a New Japan Rambo because they couldn't call it a Rumble like a normal fucking promotion. Has to be a Rambo, doesn't it?
A Rambo? I don't even know what that is. What is that?
Basically,
a battle royal? Or?
Yeah, it's a battle royal, and then the last four go on to challenge for the provisional King of Pro Wrestling 2021 trophy. I am totally unfamiliar with this. What is the King of Pro Wrestling trophy, Jimmy?
So, I quite like the idea of it. It's coming away a little bit from the more kind of traditionalist New Japan sort of style. So I think one of the things I really like about New Japan is that all of their sort of trophies and cups and titles are always like competed in a one-on-one fight.
Yeah.
But the idea of this new belt trophy, which is sort of passed around now, is that it's mostly done in gimmick matches. Not sensible gimmick matches, obviously. Stupid gimmick matches. So Toru Yano was the first King of Pro Wrestling champion. And I believe he defended the title in a you must rip off all of the turnbuckle pads.
That is amazing. That's like DDT sort of memeage, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's come from like a couple of different places. I think, first of all, they're probably trying to engage in a portion of fans that are kind of put off by a more kind of stiff New Japan style, that whole one-on-one, very serious. And there is a market for like sort of almost comedy wrestling that Toru Yano like tapped into very successfully. And DDT is essentially cornered for quite a long time now.
Wasn't their world champion a ladder for quite some time?
Yeah, I believe Britt Baker was the world champion recently, and she lost it to a book which she was reading and fell asleep with on her lap. So
pinned her.
It pinned her. So.
That's amazing. That's ridiculously literal. Like you fall asleep, and the cat sits on your chest. That's a pinfall. The
cat's the champion. I'm pretty sure that's happened. Like a cat has been the champion as well. So.
That's amazing. Like. No one tell Jim Cornette about DDT because if he hates Omega and Bucks like that, that'll kill him. Like, I don't think his ticker could take it. That man like must run entirely on bourbon and rage.
Just like off topic, my favorite bit about Britt Baker losing the DDT title was she got pinned by a book. The referee counted. Handed the title to the book, and rather than pin the book back, she just shrugged and walked off and left the book as champion where it was. So,
that's amazing.
I've got no idea who was currently champion. I assume it changes quite often, but that's where we're at.
Yeah, like we have no idea who's in this Rambo, Jimmy.
I'm hoping Minoru Suzuki.
I think Suzuki's got to be one of the last four. Like he's not doing anything else on the rest of the 2-day card. I don't think you can have a Wrestle Kingdom without him featuring somewhere. Like he's just too much of a character, isn't he? Ishii as well. Like Tomohiro Ishii is conspicuous by his absence from the rest of the card. So I'm assuming him. probably Goto as well, and then maybe Toru Yano or Yuji Nagata. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, whenever Yano and Suzuki are in the same kind of area, that's always top comedy. Because the scariest man alive is coming to face with Minoru Suzuki, obviously. So,
Yeah.
I'm hoping it comes down to some kind of Suzuki Yano shenanigans.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is one of my favorite stats is that Suzuki has never beaten Yano, I believe, in a one-on-one fight.
That's amazing.
He's essentially Yano is the Undertaker when it comes to Suzuki. So
is his
long may that continue. Yeah.
He's just so ridiculous that his brain doesn't compute. Suzuki's brain doesn't compute him. You know,
without the fear that Suzuki normally has, I think he just sort of struggles and he can't do it.
Exactly. So I think we'll combine the Rambo with the Fatal 4-Way in night 2, and we'll just go with our top 4 and then our pick to win it. I think it's going to be Suzuki, Ishii, Goto, and Yano, and I think I'm going to go with Suzuki to win it. But what about you?
Purely because I really want to see a hammy Suzuki for the rest of the year, defending in gimmick matches. I'm going to go for Suzuki as well.
Excellent.
If not, unless I don't know if Yoshihashi is booked on anything, but he would also be a top pick.
Oh, that would be great. I completely forgot about Yoshihashi, as I
Most
often
people
do. I love how there's that bit on Reddit where people are like, "What the fuck is with that stick? Like, why has he just got a stick?"
Well, like one of the first books I read, one of the Chris Jericho books, first wrestling books I read, obviously not like a Hungry Caterpillar, was just talking about how, if you carry something down to the ring, it should feature as a part of your thing, like Darby Allin with his skateboard as part of his character. And I just don't get what Yoshihashi is going to do with that stick. I've never seen him use it. It's just...
He's a baby face. It makes sense, wouldn't it?
I can't tell if he's a baby face or a heel. I don't get it. Like, I feel like it's been memed to a point where I can't tell if it's a meme anymore or a joke or if people like him. It's
baffling because he looks surprised to be there. When he pulls back the curtain, he looks like he's just been woken up and told he has to wrestle Kazuchika, like a tag match.
Yeah.
Like he's still like you know, like the 20 minutes when you've just woken up where you're still just not quite with it.
Yeah, he looks like he had a rough night the night before. He's gone out, had a few drinks, and he's literally just found himself in the entrance to a match.
Oh, 100%. I think now we've done ragging on Hashi, we've got a match I'm quite excited for. Sets up for night 2, as these things often do. Not too sure about the 2-night structure, but I suppose you can fit a lot more singles matches and stuff. So I'd rather have, rather than one massive card, it broken down to over 2 nights. It's maybe a bit more watchable. Certainly as for WrestleMania when they were getting to 8, 9, 10 hours long. But Hiromu Takahashi, who has had a really decent year, I think, versus El Phantasmo, who's irritating.
Hiromu's one of my favorites. I'm trying to be as unbiased as possible. I think he'd probably be one of the MVPs of 2020 for New Japan.
Oh, definitely.
I was surprised he wasn't in the G1, but I guess the long-term plan at the moment is for him to kind of carry the junior heavyweight division for a bit longer still. Even though he's not the champion, I think it's pretty obvious that he is still the ace, essentially, of the juniors.
Mm. Yeah, I'm the same. He's very much taken over the role that Ospreay had at that weight. I think that he'll carry that division for years. He's basically like Kushida in terms of he's the guy now for the foreseeable future in that division, whether he holds a belt or not, like you said.
Yeah, much like Tanahashi is almost over heavyweights.
Yeah.
He doesn't need the belt to really be the ace. El Phantasmo is annoying. He's a good wrestler. I expect it'll be a really, really fun, quick, high-flying match. I would assume purely based on the stipulation that Hiromu is going to win, and also, the baby faces do tend to go over more often than not on the big January 4th show. So I'll assume Hiromu is going to win. But I think it'll be probably a minimum 5-star match, which is quite bold. But
yeah, I think it'll be more Hiromu dragging El Phantasmo to his level than anything else. But not saying El Phantasmo is a bad wrestler. He's just not Hiromu Takahashi. Not many people are. Well, exclusively the one person.
there's not many people who can keep up with Hiromu, which is, I guess, another one of the reasons they've sort of held off on him going to the heavyweight division at the moment, because, well, I mean, there's a lot of dream matches as well if he does ever make that sort of leap to heavyweight. We saw Hiromu versus Okada in the summer, which I loved. I thought it was one of my favorite matches of the year.
Oh, that was excellent match.
We saw Hiromu versus Yano, which was one of my other favorite matches of the year.
Oh, that was beautiful. Reasons. One of the highlights of the G1. Like, for how absolutely piss poor Okada versus Gedo match was, Yano versus Hiromu Taku was excellent.
I can't remember exactly what was happening at the time. I just remember that sort of period being really, really shitty for like world events. Yeah. And then we had the beauty of Hiromu trapping Yano in an elevator and running away. Which that was exactly what we needed.
Yeah. Are we both going with Hiromu for night one?
Definitely Hiromu.
Because as okay as Phantasmo versus Ishimori would be, and if they were doing more, bristly Bullet Club stuff, fractional, that I'd expect it. But I don't see them not having Hiromu to put on the board for night 2. So Hiromu for me.
I can't see them doing a heel versus heel match either.
No. Yeah, so Takahashi, both of us for Ishimori, which is a very, very good match when it happens, that I'm not bored of, which is nice.
Yeah, it's happened quite a few times. Does Ishimori, I think, have like a really severe win record over Hiromu as well?
Yeah. So I think that's kind of like that historical trend, which New Japan do tend to stick to. This is sort of a bogeyman for Takahashi.
Yeah, I don't really know with this one whether or not they'll go for a Hiromu win at the Dome, or whether they'll do something. I can't think who the other top baby faces would be in the junior heavyweight division. The next one, Show maybe, or Yo, or God forbid, like Master Watto.
Oh, we'll get into him. Maybe my boy, my absolute G, Bushi, who I love and is fundamentally underappreciated.
Yeah, maybe. Bushi's possible, I guess. I don't know with this one.
Their light division, their light heavy isn't, especially because they can't. Obviously, Ricochet's signed, and a lot of the people that they did import was assigned to other promotions in terms of that division, and it's not like they can get imports in to like pad out that division like they do anyway. Like they might, if they're lacking a year, bring in Dragon Lee or someone or Matt Sydal or Ricochet or someone like that. If it's not as strong as it needs to be, they could bring in someone like that historically, and that's just not the option now.
Yeah, and I think sort of purely based on that, I'm going to actually thinking about it in that sense. I'm going to go for Hiromu because, have the aces on top at the Dome, have the big merchandise movers on top. It just kind of makes the most sense, I think. So,
yeah, I think if we're going through that, then Hiromu to win both nights, I think. Next, we're on to Dangerous Techers. That is Taichi, who's like a proper heel in that he's a detestable tosspot, versus God, Tamatonga, and Tangaloa. What are your thoughts been on Dangerous Tekkers as a tag team?
It's a weird pairing initially. Although to be fair, I almost feel a lot of the members of Suzuki-gun are kind of just sort of like almost like the outcasts and the fringe kind of members. I love Zack Sabre Jr. He's an absolute prick, which means he's great. I love how much he shit talks during his matches. It's one of my favorite things. I think more people should be doing it, because if you were in a fight with someone for 20 minutes in that sense, I can't imagine you would be quiet. Taichi, he's growing on me. There was definitely a point where he was in Yoshihashi territory of, I can't work out if this is a meme or like why this guy is here.
Yeah, I might
just grown on me.
Mugged off here.
Yeah. It's sort of like almost like a joke on all of the foreigners who just don't quite get it. He's had some good matches this year. I think the turning point for him was like towards the end of last year. He had that feud with Naito, which we all knew he was never going to win, but at the same time, it kind of elevated his status for a while.
And he gave him a good heel to rub off, didn't he? Like as much as Naito's like beloved, and then to have this guy be an absolute wanker, it just made him look better.
Yeah, 100%. And I think sort of since that point, he's had a solid year. I don't think he's ever going to be a kind of show stealer, but at the same time, he's a prick, and we all like that in our heels.
But I've just been reading an interesting stat. God, Tamatonga, and Tangaloa have never got it done at the Dome, and considering I think they're in this spot for the title match every fucking year, or at least since I've been into New Japan. That's a weird stat. You would have thought they would have pinched one, but do you think the streak continues? Do you think Taichi and Zack Sabre Jr. have it, or do you think God have this one in the bag?
It's a really tough one. A lot of it obviously depends on almost depends more on outside factors. GOD's availability going forwards, whether they plan to sort of stay in Japan, or because obviously they all live in America, and there's a 2-week quarantine if you travel from America to Japan at the moment. So I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I assume God are going to be the baby faces because we haven't seen them for a while. Tamatonga's one of my boys as well, so I'm quite looking forward to seeing him back. I'm going to go God just for a short term. I don't think it'll be a long reign, but I would say God for the short term.
Yeah, I think so too. I think they're going to get their buzz and then quickly lose it back again within a month, and then go back to
maybe
America.
As soon as New Year's Dash.
Maybe, just get the moment, and then the way New Japan fling those tag belts about, like they don't give
they truly don't. No, they don't.
No, it's just it's just the most thrown about, like out. Even WWE, I suppose, treat their tag team division better occasionally. It's
a stretch.
Yeah, they're both really poor tag divisions, and a lot of the God teams I want to see God wrestle aren't in Japan. I want to see them wrestle the North. I want to see them wrestle Gallows and Anderson again. I want to see them wrestle FTR. They're all not in Japan for me.
I think a lot of the issue with New Japan and WWE with their tag divisions is they're not really tag teams. They're just two singles wrestlers more often than not who are put together.
It's like, fuck, got two Europeans who we're doing nothing with. They're together and they're bad, and they're a bit blokey because they're European.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's not really. It doesn't really feel like they have that much chemistry as like a team. It doesn't really feel like they're a team. It feels like both of them are just trying to get to a sort of a higher point in a singles career.
Yeah.
But thankfully with GOD, I can't see that ever happening. So Tama Tonga for the win.
Yeah. Well, if they were at if they're at WWE, they would have definitely broken up and had a meaningless feud by now. But at least New Japan doesn't do that, you know?
Well, yeah, at the moment.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think we're both going with GOD. I think the next one, I don't want to spend too much time on it because the match itself, especially since Juice Robinson fractured his elbow bone, Kenta versus Satoshi Kojima. I can't see anyone other than Kenta winning this. And then when John Moxley can get into the country to defend it, which I'm surprised they hadn't stripped him because he hasn't. I don't think he's defended it for a year, and they could have done bits with it. And Kenta versus John Moxley is a match I really want to see for the title, but it just seems this one seems very, very open and shut. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, 100%. It's Kojima's there to give Kenta something to do.
Yeah.
Potentially. My understanding of the Moxley situation is they don't want to strip Moxley of the title because he's a big name. When he eventually does come back, it will draw eyes back to New Japan again. And unfortunately, Moxley's status is that he can't travel to Japan and he can't defend the title in the US, I believe.
Yeah.
So his contract is that he can do New Japan in Japan, but he can't sort of compete. Essentially, it would be like competing for another American promotion if he was doing shows over there. So
that's fair enough. That answers my follow-up question of why he hasn't done anything, as you know, special when they do their Young Lion shows, you know, their American shows, New Japan USA.
Yeah,
that answers
I think anything televised or pay-per-view he can't appear on, unfortunately, unless he has permission, and as there's no working relationship at the moment, at least between New Japan and AEW, it's not going to happen.
Do you think that will change though? Because there's been a lot of speculation about, obviously Harold Medge was stepped down as head of New Japan, and the chap who was in charge of New Japan USA has took his place. Do you think that will, because there seems to be, you know, obviously Jericho and Moxley can go, because of their contracts, can go and do Japan and do what they and have a lot more leeway in that respect. But do you think that will be reciprocated? We'll maybe see, you know, Ishii turn up, Tanahashi, Ospreay, you know, those sorts of people turn up at AEW. Do you think we could see that in the future, or?
Yeah, I fully expect that to happen in the future. I think it's beneficial for both. From my understanding, I think a lot of the New Japan hesitancy was that they had an agreement with Ring of Honor, and also they weren't confident that AEW would be a big brand. But Ring of Honor has very, very much fallen, unfortunately, over the last couple of years.
Ring of Honor is now lower in terms of significance than Impact is. Like Don Callis has really kind of revived that again into something, you know, worth watching. Whereas Ring of Honor, I couldn't even tell you who the Ring of Honor World Champion was at this moment.
I have no idea who was even signed to Ring of Honor.
I think last time I checked, it was Rush. Rush is decent, but I don't think he's there. Like everyone who gets good in Ring of Honor, they get headhunted. I just don't. They had to basically let Marty Scurll become head booker so he would stay. So they can't make anyone else head booker, can they?
And I think, unfortunately, because of 2020, Marty Scurll was essentially MIA for the foreseeable.
Yes.
So, and he, in all fairness, he was probably the biggest star. So,
yeah.
Them losing him is a big loss. Not to society, but to Ring of Honor, I guess.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, the guys who own Ring of Honor, Sinclair Broadcasting, if you look into them, the content, like the must runs they own like a worrying amount of local news media, and they just use it to like plug far right nonsense about, like, you know, triggered college campus libtards and all of this bollocks. So yeah, but it's almost as bad as when they were literally owned by a paedophile. So
It's like the thing with Ring of Honor is that fans always say that, oh, there's no need to worry, we've got all of this money, but their owners have no intention of spending it on Ring of Honor. So
yeah,
whether or not Ring of Honor will be here in another year or 2 years, I'm not too sure. But
yeah,
sort of back to the sort of original point. Yeah, I fully expect AEW and New Japan to form some kind of relationship in the future.
yeah. I wouldn't be. I'd be very surprised because they've worked well with NWA, although that has seemed very one-sided because NWA haven't really been doing events, and their relationship with Impact is really, really promising. It's mature and it makes like business sense. So I more of that, please. And I think that Impact will soon be like the third promotion in the US again. The Ring of Honor did overtake it for a bit, but now it's coming back. And then a lot of Ring of Honor's audience will probably, split between the other promotions. And there's NWA that's doing bits still.
Yeah, there's MLW, I think, as well. And the fact that Ring of Honor is now at that kind of level, which they're barely regional promotions, really is, yeah. And Impact obviously will just never die. So
Impact cannot be killed. Like a lot, if the Dixie Carter, Bischoff, and Hogan couldn't kill it, it's immortal. If Russo couldn't kill it, it's immortal.
If there's a nuclear war, the three things surviving will be the Cockroaches, the Scorpions, and obviously Impact Wrestling every Tuesday night because
on Twitch
Impact.
now, because of course it's on Twitch. Oh man! So we covered pretty much on Kenta. The fifth one is Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Great-O-Khan. I haven't known much about Great-O-Khan. Looks like he's doing bits. He's certainly not the worst new young boy to come back in a while. From Excursion, he's certainly decent. Poundland, bit bad luck Fale if you want to be a bit mean, but
yeah.
But he's fighting Hiroshi Tanahashi, the ace, like New Japan's John Cena, and just seems like a safe pair of hands for Great-O-Khan to have his Wrestle Kingdom debut. Same with Jay White when he came back from Excursion. Before we go into predictions, do you know much about Great-O-Khan? What are your impressions of him?
He's big.
He's a large man and he wears a glove.
He's a large man. I think his debut was really underwhelming. I think that he's a big guy, and I'm not just trying to repeat a point, but I don't know how he's gonna fit in that kind of New Japan. Like, you need to be a good worker to really thrive. I'm not sure how he's gonna fit in there. The last big guy I thought was really good in New Japan was probably Lance Archer, who surprised everyone where he had that really good G1.
He had an amazing 2019, and he's been doing bits for AEW. I'd like to see more of him, but what I have seen, he just came out. He's just been went from like a solid, tag team player to someone who could do bits, incredibly win any mid card title, any promotion, or like if there's slot in for a title program, even he is that good.
I'm really surprised that he didn't end up in WWE as well, to be fair, Lance Archer, because he's the build like exactly what they would want normally.
Yeah, you'd have thought so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, Great-O-Khan. I've not seen a lot of him. What I have seen has been a little bit underwhelming. I figure he's there to just be a muscle for Ospreay. I'm a bit surprised almost that he's having this kind of one-on-one match in such a high profile stage as well.
Yeah, I think it's because there was no one feasibly else. A lot of people are preoccupied with the King of Pro Wrestling thing who would maybe wrestle Tanahashi, and then it's kind of mid-card people are all tied up with that or other bits, and then the main event guys are obviously fighting Ospreay or tied up with the title. So I think that this very much seems to me is Great Khan's going to be smashing Tanahashi up a bit, but then Tanahashi's just going to Super Saiyan, and it's going to be a crowd flicks the bean moment. He's still got it, because I think Hiroshi Tanahashi, he if he didn't lose to Jay White, who came back with so much more fanfare than Great Khan, I don't see him losing to Great Khan. Do you?
I don't know, to be honest. The way Tanahashi's been booked over the last year is he's basically lost every feud he's been in, which is probably like one of the worst. I'd probably say one of the worst booking decisions New Japan have made is like how quickly they've pushed Tanahashi down the card. I guess he's a lot more injured and retiring a lot sooner than any of us sort of initially thought. I'm a bit surprised at that one. I don't know. I hope Tanahashi wins, but my gut says with the way we've booked him that he'll probably end up doing the job.
Yeah, if he does put over Great Khan here, I won't be surprised, but I'll be very, very disappointed. And I think that him getting smashed, they might have like him, have like a proper hurrah. I just thought that I know he's retiring and he gets injured and stuff, but I thought they might at least Undertaker him for a couple of years, where he shows up to feud on Wrestle Kingdom or does like little bits and pieces with that. I just think that they've kind of Kojima'd or Nagata him quite startling, especially since it wasn't 2 years ago when he won the title from Omega. It's quite staggering how he's like fallen down in the card since then, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, my only thought is that maybe he is planning to leave sooner than perhaps people anticipated. He isn't planning to go into his 50s like Nagata and Kojima and Suzuki are now.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe his body just can't handle it because he worked his absolute bollocks off,
Yeah. For
I'm not saying the others don't, but
no.
I think, yeah. I'm just saying that, he's not. His style is a lot more high octane than Suzuki's in the high flying flair shit, whereas Suzuki's like I will kick and strangle you, basically.
Yeah, Suzuki's a lot of more of a safer style. Safer for Suzuki at least.
Yeah, so I think that definitely is in consideration. I think he deserves better than it, and I'm going to still stick with what I said, but my cynic is creeping in, so I'm going to go lock in Tanahashi before I start umming and ahhing. What about you?
I'm going to go Great Khan, but I'm going to be disappointed if I'm right. So.
Yeah, and part of the reason I picked Tanahashi is because the next wrestling match, Kazuchika Okada versus Will Ospreay.
I can't wait for this one.
This is a personal highlight of the card. Even how iffy Ospreay has been with some allegations this year, but I don't know. I'm just a bloke on the internet. But he's fighting Okada. He's got his own faction, He's got his own big man. B. Priestley's there. And, I see here... I don't know. I see Will Ospreay... I'm inclined to have Will Ospreay absolutely shithouse him. Like, win very, very dirtily. And, that program be elongated. But Kazuchika Okada is Kazuchika Okada. And... this is the longest stretch he's been away from the big titles, the title picture, hasn't it? So I'm curious. This is probably one of the more contentious ones. So what's your take on it?
I'm really excited for this match. They had, it was either a year ago or 2 years ago, the G1 match between these two was absolutely fantastic. Distinctly remember Ospreay hitting Okada with a chop, which was literally so loud, I think it echoed. And that's not like an exaggeration like normal. It was probably the loudest I've ever heard. It was beautiful. It was horrendous. I've watched it like 5 times in a row, just cringing every time.
Yeah. Hit me up with that
really...
link. I'll put a
I'm really
Brazzers
excited.
logo under it.
Oh, it was a thing of disgust and beauty. And yeah, I mean, when they wrestled before, they spent 20 minutes reverse and everything, and that really good New Japan style that Okada is the best at. Ospreay, like New Japan, have repeatedly shown they have a lot of trust in. They elevated him to the heavyweights. They've given him big wins. They've given him his own faction, essentially. That's a tough one to call a winner on. You never really want to go against Okada at the Dome. And obviously Okada is, he is the ace still for company. Although I'd argue that one a little bit, perhaps over the last year. I don't know. My gut says Ospreay through Shithausen, as you said.
Yeah, I can see that happening, and I know a lot of people are like, yeah, Okada lost last year, but it's like, yeah, but he still beat Ibushi, and he lost to Naito when he beat Naito like several times at the Dome before then. So I think because this will be like a long program, I think, between the two, and I think it has more sauce if Ospreay gets the win here. So
yeah, it's a lot like sort of the Jay White and Okada story. It wasn't just a one and done. It sort of still is carrying on to today. If they're ever in a ring together, there's always that kind of undercurrent of Jay White betraying Okada.
Yeah.
So yeah, may well be sort of a similar situation.
Yeah, I the real winner is whoever's watching this match because it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah, it's going to be really good. It probably should be the match of the weekend.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's definitely a candidate. Not that the main event for night one isn't very, very strong. Naito versus Ibushi, always fun. Yeah, Ibushi was my pick to win. Him or Takahashi to win the New Japan Cup. That didn't pan out. Stuck with him for G1 Climax. That panned out, thankfully. So that's 1-1. But then Jay White absolutely shithoused him for the contract. But he's still getting that shot against Naito, as was fairly predictable, to be honest. As soon as we knew it was going to be 2 nights, you're like, I see what you're doing here. But Ibushi did come fourth in the double gold dash last year. I don't want them to go-to him. I really don't want them to go-to him because you can't keep losing every time you come up in the belt. So I know this is once, but I'm going to stick with for 2 out of 3 of my big New Japan event predictions. I'm probably going to go with Ibushi again. I think this is Naito had his year last year properly where he finished unanimously on top. He finally slayed his dragon in Okada, and I think Ibushi is the winner for night 1. We'll save the night 2 finale for the last bit of our predictions. But what are your thoughts on this one?
It really is a bit of a 50-50 for me. Naito, as you know, is my favorite wrestler, and he's been champion most of this year, which isn't surprising because he's the most popular wrestler they have. He's a big merchandise mover, and they've needed all of the help they can get really this year. So it's going to be a really good match. I think the last time these two had a match, it wasn't critically panned, but a lot of people said they didn't enjoy it because of how dangerous some of the spots looked.
Yeah.
I think I distinctly remember Ibushi taking a dragon suplex on the apron, perhaps.
That was sickening. Like, these two have a real disregard for, like, if someone from health and safety went to hell, like, they'd just have made to watch Naito versus Naito and Kota Ibushi matches just forever. That would be their torture.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards Ibushi. I think he's carried New Japan through 2020. He's done his job, essentially. and I guess it is the climax of his story now. I don't really know where he goes from here. But yeah, I think Ibushi is more likely. I think it will be a really, really good match. I think most of us are going to cringe several times and hold our necks and tell them how much we love them.
Yeah.
It's going to be a weird one. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm happy that Naito is getting his moment in the sun, essentially. He's getting that Tokyo Dome main event.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably going to lose.
And the loss, like I said, we're in Kota's day, Ibushi's danger of, what I'm forever calling getting go-toed. Like, can get to the dance, but can get to the main event, but can never quite win the big one. So I think Ibushi needs this and deserves this, and that sets up a proper grudge match with Jay White, who's the commander-in-chief of the shithouses. And I was on the fence about Jay White when he first came back from Excursion, but he's just a nuance to his heel work in that he knows when to be ostentatious. Yeah.
He's such a dickhead. He's great.
Yeah. Like, he knows when to be ostentatiously heelish, and he knows when to, just be sly, and I just respect that. So, but we'll save that for last, because I think that'll be the subject of a lot of discussion. But yeah, are we both going with Kota for night one main event?
Heavy heart, but yeah, Kota.
Yeah. I don't know enough about Stardom to cover the exhibition matches, but I will check them out if I can. We decided Suzuki is coming with the trophy, so that's good. Obviously, the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championship next, which I imagine everyone's so wet for. Suzuki-gun, i.e. El Desperado, and everyone's favourite alcoholic Japanese stepdad, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, versus, I believe they're called it says they're called 1 or 8, which is Taguchi and Master Wato, who since Stardust Genius booed out of the building Naito, I haven't had such a whiffy response to anyone in New Japan. I just think this guy's cringe, just sheer unadulterated cringe, and I'm going with Suzuki Gun just because of my just reflexive cringe at seeing Master Wato at all. Am I being too harsh here on Master Wato? No. I know he's green, but he's boring as shit.
I'll say a lot of really good things about New Japan, but their debuting of people is not great. And Master Wato, he has fallen victim hard, I think. The problem is that he was built up for weeks and weeks with these kind of skits. And what we got was just a very, very green, very odd-looking Yoshihashi clone, essentially.
Yeah. If Yoshihashi was a millennial rather than a boomer,
Yeah, I don't get what Master Wato is.
Those cringy pictures of Westerners in fedoras holding katanas?
Yeah.
It's like if one of those people was actually Japanese. That's how I feel about Master Wato. He's a weeaboo, but he's Japanese. He can't be a weeaboo because he's Japanese.
Yeah, he's just a boo. I love Taguchi, which is really disappointing.
Yeah. Anyone whose finisher is hitting someone with their ass, I'm all here for.
The dream Rikishi Taguchi team we never got, which is
absolutely. And Taguchi did have a hella stint. His rivalry with Finn Balor, for instance, he was the guy, and he's someone I respect. But I think he's there so people don't respond too negatively to Master Wato, because I don't think anyone, even the most cynical of wrestling fans, has it in their heart to boo Taguchi. It's just too cruel.
And I think when you're at the point where you're having to protect your guys that way, you've kind of fucked up. So
yeah, it's just because it's it's always different levels of cryptic seasoning, some video packages that occasionally make sense, and then a few months later the guy turns up and usually just has a load of tag matches. And that's exactly what he did, and he got caned by Dookie, which I don't know if that's how that pronounce it, but Dookie is slang for shit. And if you're getting caned and knocked out with a cane by Poo Man, as that's not a strong debut.
I think the other thing is his whole gimmick, as far as I can tell, is that he's some kind of martial arts expert. But in a roster with actual martial arts experts and former MMA fighters,
like Minoru,
it just comes off really weird.
Yeah,
these really obviously fake kicks and stuff that he's doing. And
when Inoki tried to make New Japan basically an MMA promotion, and people didn't like it because you had the guys who were hard, they were wrestlers, but you were putting them against MMA guys, and they were getting absolutely battered. And then, with the exception of fucking hell, what's his name? The guy who tapped out all of the Gracies. I can't remember his name, but he's he was legitimately Kazuchi Sakuraba. With the exception of him, who was genuinely a handy wrestler, and it just you had the wrestlers being shown up at MMA and getting knocked the fuck out for the most part. Nakamura actually doesn't have that bad a record, considering. And then you had MMA guys coming over to wrestling and being shit at it. So you got the worst of both worlds. And Master Wato kind of reminds me of that era of New Japan.
Yeah, and again, as we've talked about before, you've got essentially New Japan has the Hoss division, the division of just people who hit you really, really hard.
Yeah.
Which will, the never open, which we'll get to in a bit. And when you've got that whole division of people who strike like they're trying to end your life, and this supposed martial arts expert is throwing these really light kicks, and I'm not surprised the audience has just really rejected it. It doesn't fit in in the 2020 sort of wrestling landscape anymore. If you're going to be a martial arts expert, you better at least know some martial arts.
Yeah, I know. It's just not worked out for him. Someone in creative New Japan, Gedo, has done him a nonsense. But shall we wrap this up ragging on him? Who do you think will win?
Not Master Wato. Sorry.
Yeah, Master Wato is getting pinned. After he's going to get splashed he's going to get Jack Daniels in the eyes pinned. Calling it now. We've got a much more interesting match. Shingo Takagi, who's just done absolute bits ever since he came to New Japan. Absolute hoss. Love the guy to pieces. Versus Jeff Cobb, who I've seen do amazing work for Lucha Underground as Matanza. And he has some solid matches. Doesn't usually do well in the G1. Kind of has to be in with the right person. But I think Takagi versus Cobb will actually be a fairly solid match. You looking forward to this one?
It's a Hoss fight, of course I am.
You do love a Hoss fight, don't you?
This match is in a nutshell why Master Wato doesn't work.
Exactly. It's this match straight after the tag match, and it will only make the contrast so much more staggering. One follow-up question I do have today in relation to Will Ospreay's stable Empire. Great Okan seems like the silent, bad luck Fale Heater. And you think, oh yeah, they're the cord free, they're building them up. All of this, that, the other. But you go and recruit Jeff Cobb straight afterwards, who seems like he would be perfect for the silent killer Heater. And he has the benefit of being less green, being a much better wrestler than Great Okan. And Great Okan almost seems to have gone from Heater or the Diesel to Will Ospreay, Shawn Michaels to now with Jeff Cobb in there, he just feels like the young boy,
It's a weird one. I wasn't sure if they were going to eventually go down perhaps a tag team route for those two, as the two Hoss machines could actually be a legitimate tag team in New Japan, which we already mentioned they are kind of missing.
Yeah.
But no, I agree. It's a weird pick almost, because it feels like there's two of them doing the same role. only one of them is an infinitely more experienced and currently better wrestler. So
Yeah.
it's a bit of an odd choice, and I think that's New Japan in 2020 in a nutshell. Really, it's just been a series of odd choices.
Just
It's not
hard.
been their best year.
Yeah. Yeah. Even factoring COVID, it's been a bit of a strange year. I mean, a lot of people slated Evil winning the title, but I fully loved it because it was just totally out of the blue, and I was all in for that. It just was a bit annoying that it was over in a month. You know, I feel like they could have really stretched that out over, a little bit longer. But we'll get onto that Evil in a bit more specifically. I think this is a real 50-50 one, but looking like how, they need to establish Empire as a credible threat, and neither of the other two matches they win could win for a belt. So I'm feeling Jeff Cobb for this. Takagi's done a lot with the Openweight Championship. Jeff Cobb bringing some gold back to Empire sort of legitimizes them for me. But again, this is a harder one to call. What are your thoughts, Jimmy?
Pretty much the same. Takagi, I think, has found his level in New Japan. His role is, he is one of the heads of the Host division. He's always going to be around the never openweight kind of title. Yeah. I don't think he's ever going to rise much above that due to his age, and I don't think he's sort of as popular, perhaps. But also, he's in that kind of group of, like Ishii and Goto, just incredibly good workers who can get a good match out of anyone.
Solid hosses, reliable hands.
Solid, reliable Host division.
Yeah, exactly. It's where New Japan excels for me is their hosses. Like they've got their, gold top milk championship division, but their hosses are just always so much bang for your buck, to borrow another promotion's talents phrase. But yeah, Takagi, I feel like he could, realistically be an opponent for like if they ever split the two belts up into continental or even heavyweight championships. Like he could be like, when they're having one of their slower months and they just need someone to wrestle them, that could be that would be something that you wouldn't be like, this is ridiculous. Like Shingo has no chance. You'd be like, he probably won't win, but this will be a solid match, kind of thing. He's definitely that kind of echelon of on the card, isn't he?
Yeah, much like Goto is now. Maybe he'll have a good run at some point, but I can't see him going much beyond where he is. But yeah, he's good. But yeah, Cobb to win.
We've settled on Cobb. Next, I think we've got one of the sleeper hits of the card. Evil certainly has been kind of derided in some circles for being like hot and cold, and Sanada has all the worlds of potential, but sometimes he's got that cool kind of detached technical style, but he doesn't have any and that works for him. But like he needs a bit of added spice, like Zack Sabre Jr. for instance, who wrestles him all the time seemingly, has that technical, wrap them up like an octopus, BJJ style, but it's also a proper tosser with it. But I think together, like especially with this subplot of Sanada, Evil trying to like get Sanada to crack his like cold skull tranquilo persona and all of the bad blood between them, I think this is going to be a hell of a match. I'm really, really looking forward to this one.
I don't know. For me, this is a really a make or break for both of them. So Evil first. The Evil experiment in 2020 was one of those odd booking decisions, in my opinion, that New Japan made. I'm not so much concerned with Evil breaking away from Los Ingobernables and winning a title. The fact that I think he had like 5 matches with Naito it's a bit much.
Yeah.
And they weren't good matches. Like they weren't New Japan main event level matches. And that it kind of puts me off Evil because I feel like he's not really met the challenge I think he was given to kind of get to that next level. I don't think he's like raised his game enough. Sanada is another one where I feel like he's always poised to break away and, you know, do his own thing, but too often I feel like he's just kind of in third gear. He's never quite getting to where he needs to be.
Yeah.
The G1 final he had with Kota Ibushi, I thought was a bit underwhelming. It's hard to tell whether it's because of like a lack of a crowd or what that was, but
it's very much consistent with Sanada, like getting near there, but he's just missing that kind of intangible. Like you want to see like all of the pieces finally put in place for him, but it's even more frustrating because you know just how talented he could be, and he's got like the look and the moves and stuff. He just needs to, like, you don't necessarily need to land on your spinal cortex 7 times a match, but you need to add like some sort of intensity to like break
that's
out
what
of
it
that
is.
hospital.
That's what it is with Sanada. He's just missing intensity. He's too tranquilo. He's like I'm never buying that it's a big deal main event with Sanada. And when you're in a big event with Kota Ibushi and you're not getting a good match, or people are saying it's underwhelming, then that's a bad place to be.
And especially since like he's always seemingly used as someone who can have a decent enough match in a Japan Cup semi-final or final, or you know, the same with the G1 Climax. Like he's feasible for there, but I think that's why they're doing this bit of Evil trying to get something out of him, because I think Sanada needs to be able to like flip, you know, and I think that might be a recurring trend, that it adds that last bit of difference that allows Sanada to break through.
They both need this to be a good match. Like that's my kind of feeling on it. It's not even so much about who wins. I think they both need this to be like a really knock it out of the park match. Because if not, Evil becomes the number 3 in Bullet Club, which is not where you want to be if you're trying to be a main eventer. And I think Sanada, that sort of sustained semi-push, is just going to cool off again. And, you know, there's other people coming through now, like Ospreay, who are, I think, more than ready to take his place if he's not going to sort of step up a bit more.
They have more about them. And, Ospreay especially seems like someone who could feasibly, maybe not next year, but 2022, win the big one. You know, that very much seems like very, very like Kenny Omega, almost kind of inevitable on the current trajectory. But the others, it really seems like, if not last chance saloon to make it, even though Evil has been the champ. You know, the opportunities won't be there forever. And I think maybe because they aborted his title run so quickly, and there seems to be more character development with Sanada. It's a 60-40, but I'm going to give it to Sanada. And like, if he has a good match, maybe he could finally be that main event contender he needs to be. But if it's not a good match, like Hoss Division, they're just Hoss Division guys then, I think, both of them.
They're not even upper Hoss Division guys, that's the thing. I mean, maybe Sanada, like I say, I almost feel like it doesn't matter too much who wins. It just needs to be a good match. It needs to get the crowd involved. It needs to show something that both of them have been missing. Because I can't imagine either of them main eventing like a big show.
Yeah. I just there's enough with Evil and Sanada, especially Sanada, that's always kept me keeping an eye on them. But I wouldn't say that they've been like a total letdown or anything that stark, but they're just I need more. Like, you have my attention, do something with it, sort of thing. You know?
Yeah. And Evil's booking has been bad.
I was just like, oh, what the fuck? That Too Sweet thing, this will be amazing. And then they're really shit canned the landing there. But yeah, Evil or Sanada for you? Like, I know you said it's immaterial.
I'll go Sanada just for the, you know, the theme of having the faces go over more. But especially, I guess, as well because Eva has been shithousing him over the last few weeks. But yeah, like I say, the result's secondary to me. It just needs to be a good match.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We've all just decided Hiromu takes the belt. And we both agreed on Kota, which is nice. But so Ibushi versus White, wouldn't it be, great? I sort of in my head, I think I'll end up picking Kota Ibushi, but Jay White just to shithouse it again and end Wrestle Kingdom on a massive, massive low point with everyone pissed off would just be beautiful heel work that I would love to see. But at the other time, I think Kota is his time. He deserves it. White could feasibly shithouse his way into winning the big one at any point. He's one of those ones like Naito or Okada or Jay White who could just be like, oh yeah, I'm challenging for the belt now, and you're like, oh yeah, you're one of the guys. Fair enough.
I mean, based on the fact that we've both gone for Kota, I can't imagine him losing a belt a day later. Although I would laugh my head off if it happens. I can't imagine him tossing around a main title that casually. If Naito wins night 1, then Jay White's winning night 2. But I don't think Naito is going to win. I assume that Kota will, come out of night 1 very, very beaten up and have to face the fresh Jay White, and it'll be a white meat baby face with a mountain of odds to overcome, and because it's Kota, we'll actually want him to do it. So
and not babyface Roman Reigns, which just did not do it for me at all. Heel Roman Reigns, on the other hand, stick more of that on my plate. Constant, love it.
It's amazing what happens if you listen to your fans for the first time in 6 years. But
it may not just be simping over Total Diva, the Divas Instagrams and nonsense. Sometimes if you people indicate what they want to see, they maybe will tune in to your product more.
I think the only thing Kota has against him is, the era of the white meat baby face is very much over.
Yeah.
Sort of WWE proves that. By every time we try and make a white meat baby face, they instantly get rejected.
Yeah.
AEW proves that all of their baby faces are sort of shades of grey, and New Japan proves it with Naito, who is probably the biggest anti-heel.
A dick,
Massive
but in the best way.
Massive dickhead, but the most popular wrestler.
Yeah.
So
I think he's gonna have what's gonna happen is competitive match. Ibushi just wins Naito, and you think White shithoused it, but then Kota Ibushi does that thing where he essentially goes catatonic and then batters someone, and he's gonna do just enough of that to Kamigoye Jay White and get over the line. And I think he's going to be pretty brutal afterwards. Maybe he keeps going after he's won the belts, and you see a bit of because they've hinted that Kota Ibushi has that nastiness in him, and it might be nice that that comes out and you have a bit more question marks over the direction of him. Because he's been hinting about he wants to become a god. That's speaking as someone who has thought they were Poseidon for a few days at Download Festival. It's not a humble objective, is it really, to become a literal god?
Yeah, and I think he needs that kind of edge to him. I could see them rejecting Kota if he stays as just a pure vanilla babyface.
Yeah.
Maybe not at Wrestle Kingdom, but definitely sort of 6 months down the road. Yeah. I don't think they'll buy into that for long.
Yeah, it's even Okada, who's the ace of the company, he's very, very arrogant with it. And that's how he kind of stays palatable, doesn't it?
Yeah, and Okada, that's kind of his thing, isn't it? Even though he is the face of the company, he's often sort of working as a heel.
Yeah.
Against other faces, he often worked as a heel against Tanahashi, and he often works as a heel against Naito as well. Yeah, Kota, it's a slippery slope for him. I do think he'll get it this year. I think he'll do the 2-day like Naito did last year.
Yeah.
But I don't know how long that reign's going to be unless he changes things up a bit.
Absolutely. We're going to have to see some interesting turns from him. But yeah, there's very little dissent from us, surprisingly, which was nice. It's nice to just agree and stuff. You know, I very much prefer that. Keep my hairline as it is, you know.
Yeah, it's it'll be a good event. Whether or not they carry on doing 2-day events going forwards, I'm not too sure. I have heard that they might be limited to just 5,000 people in per night, which, if it is the case, is going to be
weird.
Very, very weird for, I think, like a 40,000 seater stadium having only 5,000 allowed.
Yeah,
it's going to be odd.
But at least that's something, because a completely empty arena would just be, like really too off. So I'm glad that Japan have like sorted themselves out enough to do that, and just looking forward to it. Like Wrestle Kingdom is very much my WrestleMania of the year, in that like I get up to speed with a few decent YouTube videos, and then just watch it, and then don't have to think about New Japan until the Cup.
Yeah, the last couple of Wrestle Kingdoms, the first ones I've watched live, they've been great. I imagine I'll be watching this one live, or I'll be watching it while I'm working, because I just need to double check what date it is. January 4th is a Friday? No, it can't be. Oh, so it's on a Monday and a Tuesday this year. Terrific. Okay.
That's great. Well done, lads. Cheers.
Yep. So we'll I'll be watching that while I'm working. But yeah, so it'll be good. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. So that's been our Wrestle Kingdom 15 predictions. Thank you, Jimmy Rudiger, for joining us. Where can people find you? As always, you've got like social medias and that, haven't you?
YouTube is where I will be working eventually when the apocalypse is over. So Jimmy Rudiger on YouTube.
Awesome. I will link in the description. So yeah, I've been Aaron Hood, by Jimmy Rudiger, and enjoy some wrestling and that. Do what you want with your life. Other than that, I'm not your mum. Take care. Bye.